I'm going to spend some time talking about leading with faith-based values. Okay? And before I get into the content, I want to give you a little bit of background and some context, because there's some disconnects that I want to share with you right off the bat. So let me give you a sense of who I am and where I come from. So professionally, I wanted to be a doctor, wanted to be a psychiatrist. I abandoned those efforts as a senior in college, which is the wrong time to abandon that kind of vision. Ended up in the advertising business. I worked for 3 of the top 5 ad agencies in the world on cars and soft drinks and beer. And my grandfather was in the advertising business. He produced the Bob Hope show. Do you remember Bob Hope? He produced that show in Hollywood. He was one of the first radio announcers for NBC Radio in New York. My dad was in the advertising business. He worked for all the top agencies out in New York as well. He was, anybody see Mad Men? That series? My dad was that guy. And that's not always a good thing, by the way. But anyway, so I spent time in the advertising business. Then I moved to Pepsi, and I directed all of the advertising efforts for Pepsi for 12 years. Pepsi and Frito-Lay around the world. Then I came out, yep.
Pepsi Clear wasn't you, was it? Pepsi Clear, was that you?
Pepsi Clear was not me. I know who did that, but that was not me. No.
Pepsi Blue?
Pepsi Blue. I changed Pepsi to Blue in 1995. I don't know if you remember, the Pepsi can was red, white, and blue, and we converted that to blue in 1995. But I'll talk more about that in a second. Then, so I went to Pepsi, and then I moved to the West Coast to join a .com. Failed miserably after 2.5 years. Ended up in the technology world and became CEO of a company called ID Analytics here in town, which was sold to LifeLock. You know, the identity theft protection company. Sold that to LifeLock in 2012, and I retired a couple of years after that. So now I run the steering committee for the Business Leaders Ministry here, and I serve on a nonprofit board as the VP of board, soon to be president, oh my gosh, board here in town, and enjoying retirement, quite frankly, doing some paddleboarding and stuff like that on the weekends.
Yeah.
Most importantly, you know, I've had a wide range of very interesting experiences, which I really feel blessed about, but that have given me a perspective on how to integrate my faith in my daily work environment. And sometimes that worked, sometimes it didn't work, and we're going to talk through that a little bit. On the family side, I've been happily married for 39 years to a beautiful woman who is on the East Coast right now. There aren't many people like that, but we're happily married, and we've got 2 adult kids. One, my son works for Tesla. He's a senior research scientist up in the Bay Area working on the self-driving car. Elon has given them a 2-week deadline to produce a car that can drive by itself without touching anything to the media in 2 weeks. And so we will find out whether he's still working at Tesla in 2 weeks. My daughter is a senior graphic designer for a private skincare company up in Carlsbad, and Maddie's roommate, and they are 2 peas in the same pod, those two, so it's a lot of fun. On my faith side, I grew up in a conflicted Christian home. Mom wanted me to, my brother and I wanted us to go to church. My dad did not. And they ultimately divorced and a lot of other issues there. But it wasn't until college where I was introduced to Jesus with some friends. I went to a Dutch Reform School, Hope College in Holland, Michigan. And some friends exposed me to that. And I had a personal, physical conversion in college. And that changed my life forever, and I've been involved in ministries, primarily, funny enough, music ministries most of my life. I'm a drummer and I've been playing in ministry bands for a long time. Now, to be really truthful, I struggled when Mickey said, hey, would you mind speaking to this class? And I said, I know nothing about leading in ministry. I really don't. I've spent 40 years, 10 hours a day in the secular world learning how to get people to buy cars, soft drinks, beer, potato chips. That's what I've been trying to do. And so the concept of telling or teaching you and giving you some of my own personal experiences with respect to how to integrate my own faith in the daily workplace, I'm like, how is that going to be relevant to anybody? I don't really quite get that. But I think if we step back for a second, and if you'll join me and we'll work together, I think that even though we come potentially from different worlds, there's a lot of commonality in how we use our faith, how we talk about our faith, how we talk to others. And if we can look for those commonalities as we talk about this presentation, I think we'll be able to pull out some insight. Let's get started. Now, I'm going to do this by sharing some insights and share some stories around that, but then interwoven, we're going to look at some television commercials. Why? Because it's fun. Now, I don't know whether you're going to be interested in that, because these are older commercials. I mean, these were Michael Jackson days, Cindy Crawford days in the mid-'90s, in the late 90s, and so you know the younger folks, which is all of you, may look at it and go, what's that? I mean, this is kind of old stuff, but enjoy it. That's why I brought it, just to give us a little bit of entertaining break, okay? So the purpose is to share insights and stories from my perspective as an executive and a Christian in those executive marketplaces. How to integrate faith-based values, how to influence others. I took a discipleship class with my pastor in Connecticut when I was working in New York, and I said, what's the best way to get people to open up their eyes and ears and brains to Jesus and the light of Jesus? And he said, be normal, and love other people. And boy, I've never lost that point of view. Lead by example, and I'll tell you more and more stories as we go along here about people saying, why does he act like that? Why does he do that? And that's a wonderful window to talk more about my own faith and what that means. Let's take a commercial break. This is Miss Piggy. In this commercial, you will see Miss Piggy. Jim Henson had just passed away of pneumonia, so it was the B team. And Kathy Ireland, anybody know who Kathy Ireland is? She's in this commercial, the young Kathy Ireland. And I can't remember who else is. Oh, Antonio Sabato Jr. is in this commercial. So here you go.
Sour cream and onion, or more Casey masterpiece?
Yes! Some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger. You may see a stranger across the crowded room, and somehow you know even then, that somewhere you'll
Miss
see
Piggy.
her.
I nuzzle your neck. I nibble your hand. I eat your chips.
Good night. Once you discover the low-fat new flavors of baked glazed potato chips, you'll really want to hog them.
Some enchanted evening.
Back for more.
Is that a Super Bowl commercial?
It could have been, yeah. I don't remember what we had right now in the Super Bowl. You know, the Super Bowl I did a lot of commercials for the Super Bowl. A very, very scary scenario, just since you brought it up. You know, so we spent millions of dollars, not just in the ad time, but in the production itself. And we all stayed up all night because USA Today did the ad polls the next morning to rank the commercials in the rank order of appeal. And you know, thumbing through the page quickly to see where you stack rank, and it was always a very high stress moment. I'll talk about a spot in a minute. So these spots I either approved or helped produce or had some involvement with. These were not just commercials during the time I was working. I had personal involvement. All right, insight number one, set the tone. Set the right tone. So what does that mean? Avoid bad language always. One of the biggest issues I have is compartmentalism Christianity. People that act one way. We talk a lot on Sundays in this church about this. Acting one way on Sunday and acting another way Monday through Friday. It's just not acceptable. And I'll tell you an example of this. I really don't like bad language. I just think it's just a bad thing. It's a crutch. It's not a good use of English language. I love it when people met with me and they would say a swear word and they go, oops, sorry, Larry, I didn't mean that. I'm like, good. I don't like it and I don't want to hear it. So avoid bad language. Walk away from off-color jokes. I know this sounds like a bizarre statement to make, but I thought about it. Where do you learn this material? Where do you learn in the secular world people are going to bring up off-color jokes? It happens. What do? Do you say, that's an off-color joke and I'm not going to listen to that and stomp off? Well, that doesn't work always. A trick I did is I'd have a phone and I'd pretend like it was ringing and I'd walk away. So there are ways and tools that you should think through to avoid those things because you shouldn't be sticking around and reinforcing it. Zero tolerance for harassment and violence, zero. We had a situation at ID Analytics where the senior product was harassing the women product team, and they filed a claim. And so as the CEO, I had to get involved. He was furious with me that I would pursue that case, and I said, sorry. I mean, we're gonna investigate and interview, but we had to follow it through. Zero tolerance. Be truthful and glorifying all the time, and tell the truth. And sometimes that means making mistakes or admitting mistakes that you've made, but it's critically important. We can, by the way, I want to treat this as casual as you want to. So if you want me to keep going through, I will. If you want to stop and talk about it for a minute, I'm happy to do that too.
So when you're at those points, were you at the top talking down, or were you in the middle talking up and down, or were you at the bottom?
You mean where was I in the organization?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
when
it's
you
a lot
say
easier to
stop, don't say that. Were you the top man saying stop, don't say that?
No. And that's why I say I still default to love everyone and be normal. But you cannot participate. You know what Miles is saying to us on Sunday? Don't actively avoid things that displease God. Actively avoid. And it doesn't mean sitting there and maybe not laughing. It means walking away. It means saying, I don't want to participate. I'll never forget, we went to Indian Princess Guides. This is a little off subject, but we went to Indian Princess Guides. You know what that is? It's the YWCA organization for little girls and their fathers, and we're supposed to be able to bond with our children. And we went on a overnight camp out, and the girls all went to a cabin and were doing a pillow fight, and the guys stood around the campfire telling off-color jokes. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is Young Women's Christian Association, YWCA. And how dare you do that when our girls are right there? It was shocking to me. We had to quit. We resigned from that organization because it just didn't reflect the values that were important to us. So, but to your point was, you have to do, it was different. When I was CEO, that's a totally different ballgame. Just people knew that I wasn't going to tolerate that. And they just knew it. And so I didn't have to talk about it because I was leading by example. Okay, this spot, I just want to tell you about this spot real fast. So you got to bear with me. It's a weird thing. We're going to go into insight, and we're going to talk about a commercial. And so it's going to be back and forth for a little bit. This commercial is for Cracker Jack, a product that we just bought at Frito-Lay. The packaging did not exist. And we did a commercial to make fun of this package that did not exist. And if you'll listen carefully at the end, it'll say, I'll spoil it for you, package not yet available in stores. So here's a commercial that we did as a test market spot, which for a product that we just acquired for a package that didn't exist, and we ran it on the Super Bowl, and it scored like number 2 or 3.
Now Cracker Jack comes in new snack size and family size bags. And due to the tremendous response, we're also testing the really, really big bag.
That's a really big bag.
That's a really big bag.
Cracker Jack, hey, Cracker Jack, man, hey, Cracker Jack.
A really, really big bag not yet available in stores.
Mommy, I got a pony!
Cracker Jack, the greatest snack ever made.
So that was one of those internal victories that we really enjoyed because we used a different agency, which was its own story, and developed this test market spot, and it ended up on the Super Bowl and did pretty well. So that was good. All right, next insight. Influence others through action. When you can, pick themes that are positive and aspirational. So another aspect of God's love is He's given you abilities, and He's given you a positive outlook and hope on life. And I don't care what job you're in, if you can stick to positive themes and things that are aspirational and encouraging to people, it works. Reject gossip. Write emails that are uplifting. One of the most dangerous tools in the world is email. And I've seen people do this over and over again. I don't know why, but they'll write an email that's not particularly flattering, not encouraging, and they'll hit send and it went to the wrong person. Oh my goodness, please don't do that. I just have a policy. Don't write bad emails. Even if you're thinking about it, don't write it, because something will happen. It'll get sent to the wrong person, or it'll end up somewhere where it shouldn't. It's a bad form. Support programs that help love others as Jesus would love them. Demonstrate good taste. If you'll notice the commercials that I'm showing you, they're all in good taste. One of the things that I don't like about some of the creative work that's being done today is some of it's in very poor taste, and I just don't understand that. It's not very uplifting. I'll be there, Michael Jackson. So I had the chance to work with Michael when he launched his Dangerous album, and he was allegedly a health food nut, and we were in the studio listening to a few tracks from this album, and he was in the back of the room doing his moves, eating potato chips. He was not eating health food, but he was one of the most unbelievable entertainers I ever worked with. A very bizarre dude. I'm just telling you, where there's smoke, there's fire. There was a strange, thing going around there, and he was bizarre. We got kicked off a soundstage because he wanted to invite little children to play basketball on the set while we were there, so that was a bit odd. But he was an amazing. I saw him perform the Dangerous album at Wembley Stadium in London to 100,000 people, and it was unbelievable. I mean, it was just, I'd never seen anything like it. But this is the commercial we did with Michael.
I reach out my hand to you. I have faith in all you do. Just call my name and I'll be there. Oh, yeah. Just let me fill your heart with joy and laughter. Togetherness, it's all I'm after. Whenever you need me, I'll be there. Oh.
Working with celebrities was really, really hard. They have lost the ability to inquire and be interested about who you are and what you like and what you're doing. They've lost that ability. So everything is very focused on Michael. We had 2 huge sound stages in Culver City, and you know who Willem Dafoe is?
Yeah.
You know who Madonna is? Willem Dafoe and Madonna were shooting next door. They came on the set, so I had Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Willem Dafoe talking to each other. Now, on a soundstage, when we're not rolling, there's a lot of noise. Hammers, saws, construction, they're building a set. When those 3 were on the set, you could have heard a pin drop. Nobody could hear anything except them talking to each other. It was the most bizarre thing. But they're celebrities are really, really tough. It's a really interesting aspect of working in that line of work. All right, insight. Next insight. Do the right thing always. Set boundaries and stick with them. Decide who you want to be, who you want to represent, and stick with those boundaries.
So going in, if that's you, right? Versus if you're already there, how is it to now take that mantle on and say?
You mean you've changed your perspective? You're a new believer, and you're now in the workplace job that you've already had.
Right.
Yeah, that's tougher because let's go back to the earlier point about being normal, right? Well, what is normal in that case? I guess I feel like. Well, I'll give you another example. I'll come back to this. When I retired and left, I got a very warm reception from the employees at my company. And the management at LifeLock were shocked by that. And I said, you really didn't spend the time here to understand how loyal my employees are, because I cared greatly for them and I looked out for them. But I led by example. Later, one of my product VPs called me and said, I know you're a man of faith. I know you like to pray, and I'd like you to pray for my wife she had a terminal illness. She didn't pass away, but she was very close to that. I thought that was great. I wanted to be respected and remembered as that guy. So not that I grew the risk management business. You know, we sold fraud scores and credit scores to big banks and warehouse companies. We talk about a change from Pepsi. I didn't want to be known for that, you know, Mr. Risk Manager. I wanted to be known as a very high integrity CEO who did the right thing. And that was the boundary that I set. I don't know how to, you know, I think slowly you have to be normal, but you have to start to appear different. And not turn people off, but make them appreciate it and frankly inquire as to why you are acting the way you are acting, because it's a wonderful window. Avoid circumstances that might test your faith-based values. It means walking away. One of the things I did as a CEO, we had our annual party every year. At 10 p.m. I left. I grabbed my wife and I said, we're gone. Because everything after 10 o'clock, I don't want to be a part of, and I don't want to see, and I don't want to know about. So we just left, and it was the right way to avoid anything that would be a problem. Stay true to your faith. Be prepared to not fit in. You're not going to fit in. You're not going to be one of the boys getting slapped on the back and going out and drinking late at night. And I'll never forget when I was in the advertising business, we had a guy who we were on the service side. So here I have clients, and the clients wanted to take everybody out to drink at night. Well, that was not what I wanted to do, and I knew I needed to be sharp for the next day of meetings. And one of the guys on the team, in fact, he was my boss at the time, went out. Well, they were out all night. He got thrown in jail in Fort Lauderdale. They were clamping down on drinkers, and he walked out of the bar with a drink in his hand, and the officer said, get rid of that drink before you walk down the street. He swigged it. He drank it. They turned around, cuffed him, put him in jail. That's not avoiding the bad circumstances. Just get it, and you don't want to be anywhere near that. I was not anywhere near that. Keep the long-term prize in mind, the gift of salvation. You've got to have the long-term in mind. Short-term, you might get some laughs, it might seem funny at the time, but it's the long-term that matters the most. First impressions. This is a spot we do with Cindy Crawford.
Dear Diary, Dear Diary, I've never been on a blind date before. I've never had a blind date. Actually, I've never been on a date.
Oh man, how did I get into this?
How can I get out of this?
Hi. Hey.
This is totally wrong.
Like nachos? No. One enormous pair of glasses. That's all she'll say. Enormous pair of glasses.
Phrases forever, ever.
That's all she'll say.
All he'll see. I hope he's not a geek.
I look like a geek.
Help.
I need help. Big help.
This is never gonna work. Never gonna work.
Wow. This could work.
This could definitely work.
See, those kind of spots are timeless. They really work as they appeal to people's emotions, and you've all dated, as a kid, so it's really it's a fun spot. She loved those braces. They were custom made for her. She loved them. She took them home. We didn't get them back, but she was a delightful person to work with. Very bright, very smart, very shrewd. She's still successful today, but she was a great person to work with. Oh, now it's working. Okay. Okay, next insight. Place faith and family first. Commit to establishing your faith and family as top priorities. So often, people that I know view their family as a second priority, their faith as an afterthought, and they might go to church on Sunday, but nobody Monday through Friday would know it. And that's because they haven't really clearly set and established their faith and their family as top priorities. I'll never forget, I took a red eye. We were doing an analyst day for McAfee. I worked for McAfee for a couple of years up in the Bay Area. And I was responsible for analyst day, so my daughter had an awards banquet. I went to that awards banquet, got on an airplane, flew to New York, stayed up all night to do the analyst presentations, handed over a thumb drive in the morning. We did analyst day, took the next flight out of New York back for my son's award banquet. I got to both of them. I didn't miss it. I never missed a birthday. I never missed an awards banquet, ever, in the kind of jobs that I've had. So that was because everybody knew, sorry, I'm not going to be there. This is more important. Long after work is over, faith and family will matter more. I attended a leadership meeting a few weeks ago, and I heard an amazing story. True story. Guy, he said that he was at the end of his rope. He said, I finished my career. I've got $6 million in the bank. I've got this 6,000 square foot home. I'm divorced. My kids hate me, and I have no friends. Oh my gosh, how many more of those stories do you need to hear before you start to realize that work is not the most important thing? It is just not. On the other hand, God has given us incredible gifts and skills, and you have to use those to their best ability, because God wants you to be excellent. Excellence is in Scripture. He wants us to be excellent in everything we do. Set an example early on. Once you get into a new job, I mean, we're talking about if you're in that job for a while, but if you're in a new job, setting that example early sets the tone, and people know what to expect. Use time wisely so you can keep faith and family first and still excel. There's a lot of wasted time at work. Don't do that. If you've got a list of things to do, pick the worst thing that you've got to do, get that done first. Get it done first in the morning. Get your work done so you have the ability to leave at 5:36. Now, if my wife were standing here, she'd say, "You liar! You didn't get home at 5:30, 6 o'clock." The CEO, I work long hours because I was the guy, on point. But not everybody's in that role. Lead by examples, others will follow.
Larry?
Yep.
So you being CEO, and you have your moral code that you go by and guide you, but you're bringing people on who are not that person, who may never ever be that person, who wish to live the other lifestyle. So how do you deal with that with people underneath you that I don't want to say you're stuck with, but you just can't say, you're not healthy, you're out, right? Because they're there for the job.
Yeah, it's funny. I was having a conversation with Kyle Bucket. He's a retired Navy SEAL just last week, and he talked about, how do you fire a Christian who's not performing? That's one side of that coin. The other side of the coin is, why do you hire somebody that does reflect the values that you want to have in the organization? Culture is really important. In fact, I would argue it's one of the most important things an organization can have. And that's set at the head. McAfee had a horrible culture. And they hired people that way, and they kept going, and it was just, it was inculcated in the organization. I couldn't tolerate it for very long. I was there for 2 years. ID Analytics had a wonderful culture. Now that's because we hired the right people, and people at the top had the same values. Many of them go to church, but they didn't overtly say, I'm a Christian and that's why I'm joining IDEA. It never worked that way. We had to hire for skills. But there was certainly a requirement that people had to respect others, had to handle conflict in a respectful way. There's other attributes that people have that may not be a direct faith-based attribute, but it's awfully close. And so we worked pretty hard to keep people. We hired people based on that. Is that a way to?
So I'm asking if you have a troublemaker underneath you.
Oh, okay. What do you do with that?
Right.
Well, you fire them. I mean, you put them. There's certain, not just a moral code, but an ethical code and a work code. We had a guy who missed client calls because he was drunk at home, flat out on his back at home. One of the co-founders of the company went and found him and woke him up. I was just recently asked to take over that organization, and I brought him in my office and I said, dude, that's never going to happen again. He said, what do you mean? I said, because you're either going to be gone or you're never going to do it again. You cannot miss another client meeting. And he never missed another client meeting. But I was always suspicious. Always suspicious. It's a tough thing. I mean, you have there, California is a very difficult state to fire anybody. I hate to say it, but it is. That's a good thing in some cases. It's a very bad thing in many other cases because somebody has to. Alcohol is treated as an addiction. It's not an infraction, and so you have to go through a pretty long process. Fortunately, we didn't have a lot of those. But when you miss client meetings and you're not performing in the role, sorry, those are grounds for termination. It's got to be documented. You've got to do it professionally, and you're never ever saying, it's because of my faith that I'm releasing. Oh my goodness, you don't want to do that. But yeah, you have to treat those things as serious, and you've got to act on it pretty quickly because it affects culture. And by the way, it's not respectful and fair to the rest of the employees that are putting in a full day work and working really hard and doing the job. So it's just not fair to everybody else. This is a great spot. I had the blessing of supervising this commercial. I actually went down to Africa. We were there for 10 days shooting the middle distance runner at the time, ran for Japan, and a marathon runner, a spot called Kenya. And it's a really beautiful spot, and I'll talk about that in a second.
The best marathon runners in the world come from the plains of Kenya, which is understandable, considering that out here it's approximately 26.2 miles to the next Pepsi.
What took you so long today?
The traffic was murder.
Pepsi, the choice of a new generation.
You look at that spot and you go, well, that couldn't have been that hard. Oh my gosh, we were on a game reservation. You had to get elephants to move. You had to get giraffes to move. We had to get that rhino. It was a almost extinct white rhino under 24-hour armed guard. And we were running towards him, and he just got up at that time when we were filming and looked at him. I'm like, great, let's get that taken. It was an amazing commercial. That was a fun spot to produce. All right, faith-based integrity in the workplace. Demonstrate faith-based integrity. Tell the truth, good or bad news. Respect and love everyone as Jesus would love them. Look out for their best interests and be fair-minded. Admit mistakes. Be fair-minded. Treat people fairly. Love them. Be aspirational. and admit, when you do something wrong, admit it. It's amazing how far an apology goes in a secular world like this. Okay, last spot, and we'll close it up. This is Chimps. This is a commercial where we went head-to-head against Coke, which was fairly new. I mean, we did the Pepsi Challenge against Dr. Pepper and Coke, but this is a fairly unusual spot for the time.
In order to discover the real difference between the world's two leading soft drinks, we're implementing a fail-safe scientific anthropological study. Chimp A will be allowed nothing but Coca-Cola. Chimp B will be allowed nothing but Pepsi. The results are astounding. The chimp that drank Coca-Cola showed remarkable improvement in motor skills. The chimp that drank Pepsi, however, quickly lost interest and disappeared.
Hello? It's him!
I think that spot was a Super Bowl winner. I think that was right up there. All right, so those were some nuggets I'm trying to take out of the secular world, give to you. You can apply it to your own life. I'd ask you to just give me a little bit of flexibility and try to extract some things that are more meaningful and can apply to your own work that you're doing in this leadership class, but also your own jobs. I'd open it up for questions if you have any questions. And one of the exercises that we can talk about is, have you ever found yourself in a situation where, you were forced to take a position of integrity and you did it or you did not do it? Can you think of a situation where you were up against something that was not consistent with, your faith? And I'll open it up to any questions if you have any comments or questions.
Yeah, I was at a local office a year ago, actually, insurance investments. And one of the morning board meetings that we had, they said, you know what, we're going to implement this new sort of like sales tactic type thing. They had it printed out for everybody, and it was some sort of something written script, right, that you just go over with whoever you come across. Well, something in it, the verbiage, I met with our CEO after the meeting, and she asked my earnest opinion. And I said, she noticed that I didn't raise my hand like I was all in and I was going to, go hit the phones, or I wasn't going to do that. And I realized I was my own agent. So as a W-9 person, I don't have to subscribe to your theories, right? So we met after, and so she asked, what was kind of going on there for me, or if there was something I could relate to her. And so I was just very candid with her, and I said, this verbiage right here, I wouldn't say that. And I know that to this day I had her respect.
She respected you for standing up. And it was language that was off color or just didn't...
No, it was just something, it just didn't sit right with me. I wouldn't do it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Anybody else have examples or...
It happened yesterday, actually. I was at the parking lot in my workplace, and this lady shows up and she's asking me, you know what, I don't know where to go. I'm supposed to buy from this counselor, but I don't remember the name. Easily, I could have grabbed her because that's my job too. And I said, do you have any clue, any idea? No, she just told me that she's coming from La Jolla. She's a little late, but the meeting is gonna be in the main office. Well, this is the little lodge, so you have to go to the main office, it's down the road. But who do I ask? Oh, can you help me? Can you help me instead? And I said, I could, but go there first, and then if you can find the lady, come back. My name is Claudia. So I sent her, the right way. And then later on, I ran into one of my friends that she's a manager, and she told me, "Oh, I just sold something." I said, "Really? What was the name of the lady that you sold to?" Her name is Elizabeth. That was the girl, that asked me. And I said, "You know what? I sent her over there." "Oh, thank you." She didn't remember the name of the counselor, so I could have easily grabbed her, but I didn't. So.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Good. That's a great illustration of loving other people and taking the time to help them when you need to.
And integrity, because I could steal that sale, That's mainly the thing.
Yeah.
Because I've been in real estate and also now insurance, funerals insurance, and I see that happening all the time. That people get their clients, that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Oh, yeah.
I worked for the government out of Miramar, been there quite a while. And my second year there, part of my duties was to monitor and train inmates that are at the brig. They get to come out during 6 hours a day and train them how it works so they can get reintegrated back into society. Well, they happened to assign me 2 females. And these ladies been locked up for a while. And in my unit, there's been some high-ranking people fired for infidelity, and it's been embarrassing because it's high level and it's just a very big black eye. And there was a day when one of those girls goes, I can make a bet right there right now. We can just do it right now. And it was never a temptation, but I look back at that now and I'm like, that was a crossroad. That was a temptation. That was an arrow trying to take me out. I didn't even realize it back then because I wasn't really walking with the Lord, but I had my convictions. And I'm looking back at it now and I said, all those people that did are fired or gone. And I'm still there.
It is interesting to think back and think of those times when, oh my gosh, I was tested, and you don't know it at the time, but you look back in your life, you go, oh my gosh, that was a test. And thank goodness, thank God, I satisfied that test, because the reverse, if I could spend another hour, which I do not have, talking about my own family, but it's like not a lot of good role models. And so yeah, that's really impressive that you were able to, you didn't know it at the time, or you did know it at the time? Obviously.
My convictions, I never would have done that, but I didn't understand. I was new there. I didn't understand the culture.
Yeah.
And I guess
but now you look back on it and go,
that Top Gun thing going on there.
Wow, that's cool. Interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.